Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Well, I'm presuming there's some ladies out there as well as gentlemen, or vice versa. This is Tosh Talk, and today is a sort of special episode because when you usually watch me or watch Tosh Talks, you're just looking at me. If you notice on my left, there's a figure here, a person.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Kiichiro Yanashita. He's from Tokyo, Japan. He is. Would you consider yourself a? You're a writer, obviously, but are you a social critic or a film critic or a critic or a critic's critic?
What's that critic?
A critic is when you criticize other critics.
Ah, I see.
I just made that up.
Well, I don't think that way. Well, basically, I'm a translator, actually.
A translator.
Mm-hmm.
And this I know. You translated J.G. Bauer's book, Crash, from English to Japanese.
Yeah.
And what's the other books you translated to Japanese?
Let me see. Recently, I did publish a book of the First Mentions by R.A. Rafferty. He's a very obscure, very niche science fiction writer who died on 1990 something. Yeah, almost 10 years ago.
This works perfectly because Tosh Talks only specialize in very niche subject matters.
Yeah.
Usually not more than 10 people know what we're talking about.
Yes.
So the other people watching, like 10 people know exactly what we're talking about right now, but the 10 more people watching have the foggiest idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's good. Well,
that's very good.
Well, but he's not very famous like Asahi Clarke or Isaac Asimov. But
same generation.
Yeah, he's older actually. But I think he's one of the greatest science fiction writer ever.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you discover his work? I presume he's not that known in Japan.
Well, actually, he's very famous in Japan.
He is?
Yeah. Not known in the States, I presume.
Wow. Why do the Japanese readership find him of great interest compared to...
Well, because his short story collection called 900 Grandmothers was pretty good, and the translator was pretty good actually. So funny. So they translate the story, so funny stories to Japanese. So everybody loves his short story. But his novel was very difficult to understand. So many allusions about Christian mythology.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's very hard and unknown even in the States actually.
Wow. So does he so he has quite a large readership in Japan compared to other American science fiction writers.
I hope so, yeah.
So it's not the Christian thing that appeals to the readership in Japan, is it? Or is it something else? Or just the imagery of it?
Yeah, and more his short story was so accepted as a humor story, kind of humor SF.
Humor?
Humor.
Like hysterically, ha ha ha, or just sort of like, oh, that's funny.
More hysterical, crazy.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, crazy humor.
So, what writer would you compare, if you can make a comparison to another American science fiction writer? What's be the closest comparison, if possible?
Yeah, well, my opinion, he's not like in a tradition of science fiction writer. He's more like a Catholic writer, like G.K. Chesterton, or C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, that kind of writer. That is my this is not maybe a general opinion, but in my opinion, he's considered to be like a modern day Catholic writer.
So is his work deals with outer space or going to out of the earth, or is it all sort of fantasy more related?
More like a fantasy.
More fantasy related.
Like the First Mansions was basically it's a story about four different kind of species wants to become a god.
A goat?
God.
Oh, God.
God. Yeah. And some people want to be like a telepathy to make a brain together, get tuned together with brain wave, and in that way they want to be transcended to the human race. And other people wants to have really into really strictly wants to the word from God, like they just wait to be called upon from God, and some people was reincarnated for very long time to become a god.
I see.
Yeah.
Whole process.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's not really articulate like how to make a living longer like that. It's more like abstract.
Yes. Okay. So I'm a publisher, Tam Books. And usually I either locate a translator because I already have the book I'm interested in, and I try to find a translator for that book. Or sometimes, in most cases, the translator comes to me with a project. How does it work for you in Japan? Like, for instance, you're interested in this writer. Were interested in translating this writer at first, and then you show it to a publisher or editor, or was it the other way around?
Well, it's both ways.
Both ways?
So, actually. Well, but as I said, I'm a translator, but also I did write a book review and work as a film critic.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna check for these. Maybe now it's on the internet, but used to be reading a lot of magazine or newspaper to search for some interesting material and getting out to read. Maybe I'm gonna write for that. This book is very good,
right?
In English book. So some guy have seen this article and try to contact me.
Right.
Yeah. And also there's a new book, like there's some writer who thought to be in my category.
Yes.
Yes, like as I say, J.G. Ballard was John Waters. I translated his early book.
Oh, John Walter's book you translated.
Shock Value.
Oh, Shock Value. Yeah, great book.
Yeah, that's a great book. So I really appreciate his books. So when his new book has coming out, like 2 years ago, that's yesterday. The last year or 2 years ago, I'm not quite sure, but
John Waters' last book,
yeah.
Okay, because he has another book coming out very shortly. So you're talking about his last book.
Last book.
Yeah, about people. I forgot the title, but it's about it's personalities that influence.
Role model.
Yes.
Yeah. And when the book came out, some publisher contacted me to. You want to translate that book? Sure, of course.
So you translate that book?
Not yet, but
Not yet.
I hope so. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So that's a future project.
Yeah, future project.
So do you when I first met you, which is some years ago, and I thought of you as being a translator, as you mentioned, but over time it became. I became more aware because you write film criticism as well, sort of cultural about. True crime.
Yes.
And you're quite well known in Japan on those subject matters of true crime.
Yes.
And film criticism. And the type of films you write about are not always the Kurosawa or the Ozus of the world. It's more sort of the underground Japanese filmmakers.
Yeah, that's because if you there's a guy who talks about really good things about Ozu.
Yes.
So I don't have any.
That's covered already.
Covered, yes, already.
I see.
Actually, I saw Ozu film. I see Ozu film. I really love the film Ozu or Kurosawa, definitely.
But you go out of the way to I won't say go out of the way, but you really focus a lot on sort of the underground Japanese pop culture or not underground, but like Japanese films that maybe the mainstream has not picked up in Japan yet.
Yeah.
And are you one of the? I mean, there's probably only a handful of writers or critics in Japan who really focus on this, including you. Is that correct?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. You know them all.
Yes, definitely. It's a small world.
Very small world.
Yeah.
I remember once or a couple of times. Actually, it was sort of inspiration for Tosh Talks in a way, because I saw you do events, and maybe this is very common in Japan or Tokyo, but I went to a record store, maybe in Shinjuku or Shibuya, I can't remember, and it was you and another person, like an interview format, and people actually pay a fee to get in, like $10 or 1,000 yen, and you just talk about your point of view on films and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that a normal, everyday occurrence in Japan? Because in the United States, it's not. They don't have stuff like that in the United States. No, not really.
Well, but yeah, maybe. Well, but well, I think it's a recent things, but there's some space, very small space, which has which specializes in the talk show, and they pay some like a bar. The drink will be on the fee, but the talk show and people coming like very well, some talent or idol to come here and to talk about very something I don't know, but yeah, that kind of place was say like 10 years maybe. Yeah,
it's very unusual. Like talk shows are very popular in the United States, on TV or on radio. But actually, and even there's cases like you see John Waters being interviewed by somebody on stage, usually to promote a book. But it's kind of rare to see like two writers or critics commenting on various films or various book titles where people actually pay to see, and you're one of those people actually pay to see you. Like for me, they don't pay anything to see. I don't think they would pay for me. I think it's impossible thought that anywhere in the public will pay for me.
I see. Well, but actually, recently, I've been to many talk shows with like on a film. I talk before the film show or like that.
Like a film festival or a film show, and you give a little talk about the film.
Yeah, but not actually festival. Regular showing, regular release with that talk. Well, it seems well, basically the book sales was going down actually right now in Japan, and the movie go was very going down. So that's why they want to be more attraction, something.
That's your job.
Yeah, I'm attraction.
So in that case, the film business is pretty bad.
Yeah, that's true.
After asking you. That makes perfect sense. It's sort of the same thing here in the United States. But you also have a fascination, I know, and maybe you don't want to expose this or not, but you have in Japan. You're very much interested in true crime subject matter.
Oh, yeah.
What is it about true crime that really, really gets to you, that you write about it, and what is the interest for you?
Yeah. Well, it's so many aspects was there, but basically, it's really strange because well, we cannot. Well, we saw the movie about true crime. I mean, true crime about murder movie, and in the movie, the killer tend to be like very make a grotesque cut to the body or something like that. Very weird, and give a message to the police and taunt like how can you catch me or something like that.
Yes.
But this is never happens in real. And real murder was more more strange. Actually, it's a more stranger than these very baroque murder.
Right.
Yeah. More these very small subtle detail about the killing was really intriguing me. Like, well, like very famous episode. It's not murder, but very famous episode about Sylvia Plath, the poet. has committed suicide.
Yes.
Yeah. Before
Sylvia Plath.
Yeah. Before she committed suicide, she made a breakfast for her children. And she dies.
Then she quit suicide.
Yeah, yeah. So why did she make a breakfast, and what is a menu of a breakfast? It's really intriguing me.
Do you know what the menu is?
I don't know. I don't know. But these things always happens with these strange cases.
It just shows, I think, the schedule is so important in people's lives. Like her first thought is, what do I do? I have to wake up, brush my teeth, make the kids breakfast, commit suicide.
Yeah.
It's a list of things I have to do that day. And maybe it gets so mundane. Even the act of suicide is after you, and I'm sure she thought about it for, obviously she thought about it for a long time.
Yeah.
It becomes part of the schedule for that day.
Yes.
And I think
on a habit.
And actually, Yukio Mishima's suicide is probably the same way, I would think.
Yeah.
He woke up, he did the regular stuff, and it's just sort of, well, kind of for him, regular stuff is not anybody else's regular stuff.
Okay, let's go to the army's base.
Let's say hi, see what's happening. But it's so you're more interested in not actually. It's not the really well. The murder is interesting, of course, but you're more interested in the whole. The mundane or the procedure of murder or how it's placed in a general narrative, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so, and more into it, more I'm into it, more very small detail was, and also we're gonna see the big picture of these, well, some tendency of some of the murder, like. These killers who, some murderer was they killing other person, on the way to kill himself, like suicide. Well, he can basically. More states than Japan, but states are the same thing. Like the killer who, very famous killer who last year killed 20 people as a movie theater, as Batman.
Oh, the Batman, yeah.
Yeah. That guy seems to be really so depressed, and he wants to commit suicide. The actor was it's a very it's not good for that suicide for killing other 10, 20 people, but basically it's a suicide actually. Not he doesn't do any revenge or he seems doesn't want to be a joker or something like that. He just commits suicide. He's a desperate actor actually. Yeah. So
it's very interesting. It's not really about the victims. I mean, it's always, afterwards, of course. But in his mind, or it's not about the victims. I've always heard that's kind of abstract to him, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's more about what's going to happen to me. It's very much of a me culture that we live in.
Yes, I think so.
And it's like everybody's so self-obsessed with themselves. I think you're right. Like all this sort of serial killings come up lately, school killings. It's all about not them really. It's more about the killer.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, like
he and the world, right? Like to say. Well, this pattern was showing when you see all the small killings. Yeah.
To me, it's the most rudest act possible to be watching a movie and then somebody shooting you.
I see.
I mean, just on this level alone, it just strikes me as totally absurd. I mean, it's absurd for me that anybody commits an act of violence against someone else, but especially in a situation where you're in a position where you're just totally passive, watching something, and something happens to you in real life that way. I find that very shocking to me. That's like almost the most disturbing aspect of it. And I realize this person is just thinking about himself, but you wonder, like, why not just be, like at least Sylvia Plath made breakfast for her children.
Yes.
She just, I mean, she had that sort of a sense of decency to do something like that.
Maybe, but
he didn't. He didn't make breakfast for anybody.
Yes.
As far as I know. Just me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. But have you wrote books about true? Have you written true crime books or commentary on true crime?
I did books about murder, and also always some new movie about murder, true crime murder. I want to write for some article about that movie.
Mm-hmm. And do you find the most interesting culture? I mean, is the Japanese culture more interesting with respect to murders that happen in Japan, or do you find the U.S. or Europe more interesting, or it doesn't matter?
Basically, it's when I starting to study about murder, it's basically on United States, because for me the culture, for me the serial murder was a very cultural phenomenon of the United States. It's so not so popular, but so common. And no other country has such a variety and volume of serial killer, mass murderers
in the United States.
Yeah, and so must be on a cultural phenomenon. When I studied in the movie, there are so many real murder, or the culture of murder was appear in undercurrent of these movies. So I'm gonna study these things, but now I'm more into Japanese because I'm a Japanese. I must know my roots.
Right.
My roots, yeah.
Your murderous roots, you must find out about. Well, I hope you have great success in that journey. And this is Tosh Talks, and there might be a part 2, part 3, part 5, or a regular series that go on for 24 hours, 7 days, 24 hours. But right now, we'll say goodbye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.